because
The applicant's not even here tonight. Oh, we're online? Okay. All right, we'd like to go ahead and get started. We appreciate everybody being here tonight for the Harriman City Planning Commission for Wednesday, July 5th. We'll call this meeting to order. We'll go ahead and begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, and I will lead us in that. So could we all please stand? Repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Thank you. We do have a full quorum tonight. We have one item on our agenda, an administrative item. Just want to ask if there's any conflicts of interest by anyone on the Planning Commission for this item. Okay. We'll go ahead and move on to item 1.4, which is an approval of minutes for the April 19th, May 3rd, and May 17th Planning Commission meetings. As I was reviewing, I did notice one item on April 19th's meeting, item 5.2, I believe. You'd mentioned that the proposal approved was unanimous, but it was actually a vote of 5-1 on that particular item. So I think that was the, if I'm correct on that, April 19th.
I will correct that. Thanks for noticing.
Any other discussion on those minutes? Okay, we'll go ahead and ask for an approval or a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for April 19th, May 3rd, and May 17th.
All right.
Commission meetings with your adjustment.
Thank you. All right, we got a motion by Forrest and a second by Adam. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that motion passes unanimously. Move on to item 2.1. Who's leading? All right, let's do this.
All right, that's the only item for tonight. It's a special exception for detached accessory structure. It's located on the west side of the city there, off of 7300 West. Proposed accessory property here is one outline of the red, the corner of this knuckle here. The property itself is located in the Sun Point Phase 3 subdivision. It's R110, just under a half acre. What they're proposing is a 1,300 square foot detached structure, about 25 feet tall. Per ordinance, under our detached structure ordinance, that is permitted for this lot size, et cetera. Notices were mailed on the 26th of June to the adjacent property owners. We didn't get any feedback or any concerns from those adjacent neighbors. However, even though what they're proposing does meet city standards for accessory structures, they're asking for a special exception to reduce the rear setback requirements due to their regular lot shape. So what they're proposing here, this is the location of the detached structure. It's 29 by 46, is about 1,300 square feet. What you're seeing in this image here, it's actually scaled to, it's actually sitting 12 feet from the rear property line. As it's shown here, they're asking to reduce that to 6 feet. This is based on vehicular access to the garage they're proposing to build. At a 12-foot setback, it'd only leave about 12 feet between the house and the garage. So it just limit how much, vehicular access. Plus, it would, encroach into usable space in their rear yard. They can't move it any further to the east due to a sewer easement on the east property line there. They can't construct within that 10-foot sewer easement, so they can't shift the building to the east any further to increase the access. So they're asking for a reduction in the rear yard setbacks. Proposed elevations, what they're proposing, the front and hall elevations actually are built to match the existing structure. So they're showing, stucco and et cetera on all four sides. The front of the elevation matches what you're seeing on the primary dwelling, where it has the hip in the front, well, the gable on the front with the little eyebrow window and et cetera. So a few things we looked at and some things that the PC Planning Commission is taking into consideration is, as we mentioned, based off the standards for accessory structures, they could build up to 2,200 square foot structure. They're asking for 1,300 square feet. The side yard setback's 13 feet, which is in compliance with the city code and with the height they're proposing. The rear setback is the one they're asking for the reduction to 6 feet. Finished materials, as you saw, they match the primary structure. And in addition, when the applicants are asking for a reduction in setbacks, and they're asking for an increased height for that setback. Commission, can require additional architectural features on the building as part of that requirement as well, and staff is, showing that they are meeting that standard. Again, looking at the neighboring properties, the proposed location is typical of the subdivision. Again, looking at that reduced setback, there's a section in the ordinance that states, we can require additional landscaping to help mitigate some of that height that it imposes on adjacent properties, being this property is not adjacent to open space or commercial area or something. It's directly adjacent to residential properties. Staff is recommending that they install some trees along the backside of there to break up some of that, the height that's, going to be pushed closer to the neighboring properties. Let's see. Another requirement too is they'll have to secure PUD waivers to construct in that area. And those are pretty customarily when they do building permit applications. So that being said, we do recommend approval if the commission finds that they're meeting those standards to reduce that setback.
Thank you, Sheldon. So I have a question. The brick and stone percentages, it does meet the requirement because those elevations look like it was somewhat limiting.
Yes, so we don't have a minimum requirement on brick or stone for detached structures.
Gotcha.
So I'm assuming at the point where this house was constructed, there was that 40% brick or stone requirement at that point. But for detached structures, we just state that it has to be similar in
Okay.
color and materials as the primary structure.
Good to know.
But then again, like I said, they're asking for reduction in setback with additional height. I feel that warrants that additional architecture for that detached
Which is
structure.
what they're providing as
Yep.
well. Okay. Any other questions?
Could we look at the site plan again? I
Yeah.
didn't
Yep.
notice the driveway going back to the,
So let's see. So we go back, let's see if we look here, sorry. So you can kind of see on this site here, there's an existing driveway, RV pad that runs all the way back to the side property. And it's pretty much paved in behind, on the side yard of their house. So they'll be expanding that concrete in front of that structure.
yeah, to house their 6 trailers that are parked there?
Yeah, possibly.
I have a question. Is the lot behind it sold? Or is there a way to ask?
So I did talk to the applicant. So according to our records, the county records is still owned by the developer, by the Windrow subdivision. He spoke to somebody back there who was looking to purchase that, but as far as county records indicate, the developer still owns that property.
And then also, is there enough space for a tree in between the fence and the shed if it's just 6 feet wide?
I would assume so. I've seen some pretty narrow shade trees that grow up pretty tall and pretty shallow, pretty narrow in width. I guess, if you don't feel that's sufficient, we can push that out a little further if you feel that's, better suitable for larger trees.
How many trees was city staff recommending?
I'd probably say maybe one every 10 feet is probably what we would recommend, or 15 feet, depending on the tree species. So that's something we haven't discussed with the applicant, what variety. We're not sure, what will fit back there, what will grow well back there. So just gonna have the applicant do a little additional research on that.
So the porte cochere is going to be on the, sorry, I have to flip it because the lot's upside down. It's going to be on the west side of the building, correct?
What side?
The porte cochere, it's going to be on the west side?
Let me look at the building elevation and I'll tell you. Let's see. Yeah, it'll be on the west side.
It'll be on the west side.
Yep.
So, and I'm just kind of like looking at this. So the doors, no, actually it's going to be on the east side, not on the west side.
The house faces.
Because if this is
yeah.
the front
You're
elevation.
looking south there.
Yeah,
yeah.
it'll be the east, yeah.
I'm just a little concerned, like, there's not a whole lot of room to actually pull into the porte cochere, let alone the garage doors. I mean, if you go back to the site plan, I mean, you're talking 5 feet
So it's
at that corner?
It's actually 12 feet. So
No, from the corner of the building to,
Yeah, that's 12 feet now, and then it would be 18 if we
18 if
allowed,
they-
if we allowed the 6-foot setback. It would slide back
oh, so
6
this,
more
this
feet.
graphic isn't to scale?
No,
right, no, it's not, yeah.
Okay.
It's representing 12-foot setbacks, pretty much.
yeah, this is showing what it would be with the 12-foot.
Okay,
It's
so
6
even with the
feet.
12-foot, okay, I got you. So there's about a 10-foot gap. I mean, I'm just thinking of a vehicular turning radius, like,
How do you get there?
you can't get into that porte cochere on the left side, looking at us here, and kind of make that turn.
At 18 feet, you could.
I'm not an architect, but I think you mean the covered piece, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah,
I don't know what you're
The
saying.
drive-through garage, that's not enclosed.
No, what I was just wondering is maybe that's not the intent for a vehicle to park there, maybe it's more like a covered patio.
I know the applicant himself is, as mentioned in the staff board, they're looking to create maybe an ADU in the future, if it's permissible by the city.
Well, it reads as an ADU. It reads as a
Right.
completely separate residence on this
Yeah,
lot.
and part of that process too is we'll require them to sign an affidavit, which we do with any person who's installing a secondary kitchen in a structure that may potentially be converted to an ADU. They sign an affidavit, record the county stating they will not convert or utilize that area as an ADU.
Now, does that hold up if the rules in Harriman change to allow ADUs?
So if it does change and they do meet that requirement, they just submit a new application and we record a new affidavit on the property stating that it is eligible or was approved for an ADU.
As long as it's meeting the standards, if it's not,
Right,
then it
as
would
long as
come
it
back
meets the
before us.
Right.
At that point.
At this point, we don't know what our
We don't know what
requirements
they
are going
are,
to be for
but- yeah.
ADUs.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, my only concern with dropping it back to 6 feet is if it negatively affects the lot behind it. There's nothing there right now, but I don't know. I guess I kind of feel different if nothing's there versus,
And there's potential
a
residential
home.
behind there, right? It's part of the Windrose subdivision, so.
Is that, and that's already been approved?
Someone could have
and
bought it already.
That's already approved, just no one's purchased that lot yet,
That
so.
lot? Yeah, you can see down the street there is one.
So at a minimum, I think it needs to match the house 100% from an architectural standpoint, if we're gonna
Okay.
alter it all. Like, if it was 40%, I don't even know what the house is, but whatever the house stone equivalent is,
yeah. Just
should
to make that
match.
variance.
and then the 6 foot, I don't have a problem with the height. I just have a problem with pushing it to the neighbor's problem when this is clearly theirs. So I'm more for not doing the setback adjustment. But that's just my thought is, why
Well,
push that on the
maybe
neighbor?
we
It's
oughta-
not there. Open up to the applicant.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we've started some of the discussion, we probably ought to let the applicant, is the applicant online then, I'm
He is
assuming?
online,
So,
yeah.
all right. Let's go ahead and hear from the applicant, and then we can continue our discussion after that, so. The applicant's there, would you please just state your name, please?
Yeah. My name is Jeff Clough. I hope you can hear me.
Yep, we can hear you great.
Perfect. So to kind of go over the reasoning behind pushing it back, there are a couple of things kind of wanting, like, we could probably make 12 feet work, but I'm a pretty nice neighbor when it comes to the people who live around me. And we, from our property, granted, I know that this isn't a protected right by any means, but like I said, I like my neighbors. We can see the whole valley from our lot. And the neighbor to the west of us, they have a sunroom, and they have this little valley where they can see the entire valley just like we can. And so if I do that 12-foot setback, I block their entire view and they only see our structure. And so I was thinking about the current and existing people who already live as neighbors next to me on that side. The other issue is turning into the actual garage itself. Yes, it is going to be a patio that's to the east. That east side is not going to be a park under type thing. It is a patio. So we don't plan on parking under there in any way. But by being able to push that back, being able to turn out of that space and go down that really narrow driveway, the pinching point at the corner between the property line is actually quite tight. When I have to bring trailers back there, it's kind of difficult. And so by pushing it back, it gives me a little bit more turning radius to be able to kind of get that where I want it to be. And so pushing it back 6 feet, and that's why I'm not requesting 3 feet, 2 feet, pushing it up against the fence. I'm fairly reasonable to what you guys feel is right, but and on the other side, the lot behind us is a half-acre lot as well. The average home that's going to be built there is 5,000 square feet, and probably going to be either a rambler or a 2-story, which makes the structure plot itself, or the footprint, a lot smaller. And so they'll have quite a bit of room to kind of adjust where that house is actually set within that property. For a half acre, you have a little bit of flexibility there. So with all of those things in mind, when we were deciding how to put the structure, I kept all of those in mind for that neighbor. Even though they don't currently live there, they haven't built anything there yet, I still want to be that good neighbor along those lines, if that makes sense.
Just to add a few things, so on that lot just to the south there, so that's actually a half-acre
Yeah.
lot. So per ordinance, they could go 20 feet at a 3-foot setback on that particular lot. 20 feet in height at a
Right.
3-foot setback.
Okay.
So you have had conversations with your neighbor to the west then regarding this?
Yeah.
Right, I did see that.
100%. They're fairly indifferent to it. I mean, they're like, it's whatever happens, happens. But at the same time, I really do look out, like as if it was myself living in that property or on that lot. I would want the same thing. I would love to be able to look out my window and see the Draper Temple across the valley and some of the other things that we can see. And to me, it would be a little bit disappointing to lose that huge view that we picked our lots for in the first place. So for me, it's more of I'm a nice guy. Yeah, we can probably make 12 feet work, and we can live with that. But at the same time, I'm trying to accommodate for not just myself, but others.
Okay. Thank you, Jeffrey. Is there any other questions for the
Yeah, I
applicant?
thought I read that mailers went out towards the end of June. Is that right? Or,
Yeah, June 26th. Yeah.
okay, so has that period ended? Have you got any comments at all back from them?
No, we didn't receive any comments. Like I mentioned, the lot there to the south, that went out to the developer because we don't have a property owner. No one's purchased that lot.
Right, and that's why I was curious about the 2 lots to the south, if the developer's voiced an opinion.
No,
Assuming he's got a 6-foot fence, that still puts it 19 feet above the fence.
that's
So
correct.
that's
Yeah.
That's decent size.
yeah.
And what's the lot to the east?
Oh, I hear.
The lot to,
You're exactly
The
right.
big lot, the A143
143.
zone.
Maybe to the bottom of the windows.
oh, that's, is that the Butterfields or Dan? I'm not sure what owns that. It's like a 5 or 10 acre parcel.
Okay.
Yeah, that's Boyd Danzy. He owns 80 acres right there, plus another 40 acres attached to his own property.
So I guess one benefit, if it's closer to that 6 feet, the sun's on the other side, right? It's not like casting a shadow across the other lot, which is good.
Let's go ahead and wrap up any questions for the applicant, and then we can continue our conversation.
I don't have any more.
Is there any more questions for the applicant?
No,
Okay. All right, thank you, Jeffrey. We appreciate your time tonight. All right.
All right.
Okay, we'll go ahead and discuss this matter then further as a planning commission. Any other thoughts? I appreciate what he's saying about the view as well. Try not to block the view.
Commissioners,
I
if I
think I'm
may.
fine with it all. I just a little bit concerned that maybe the developer will come back against the city and say, hey, doggone it, guys, you put up a 20-foot wall in my backyard.
They were notified.
25-foot wall.
Well, minus the 6-foot fence, I was,
And I'm assuming the Danzis
Above
were,
the 6-foot, got it.
right? The east property owner was notified, the south property owner everybody was notified of this.
that's why I asked the
So-
question.
So that's good that at least
Except
the
for it's
developer's aware of it.
conditional use, so it's not like they could do anything about it, really. Right, they're
Yeah.
notified, but they're not like.
Yeah.
I'm fine with it.
I
Just because if it was on the other side where it's like casting a shadow on the back neighbor's whole yard, then I would have a problem with it.
Isn't it doing that though in the morning?
Kind of.
I mean,
Well, I guess
it's
to
gonna, their
the-
whole yard's gonna be in shade.
Well, yeah, I guess it's the property to the west it would be. I'm just thinking of the property that's south.
Well, I guess my reservation is for the setback. We have them for a reason, and I don't see moving it 6 feet south is gonna help the view from a sunroom. I assume is this little corner here. So their view is already blocked, at least 90% of it from the house, existing house, and if you put another one right there, I mean, the extra
Lost
6
more of it,
feet,
right?
you're gonna have a tiny little quarter of a view. So, I mean, I appreciate, that he's trying to maintain that, but I don't really see that as a valid reason to push it back.
I look at what we can do standardized across, and typically when we put this in here, it was not for cul-de-sacs and knuckles like this. It was more for weird, true lots.
Right.
And so that's where I'm okay with the height if they added more architectural elements with it. But the setback, I don't see why. I'm struggling with what's detrimental. Yes, you're building a giant thing in the back, but that you're not offsetting that. Like even with 4 trees, I don't think you're offsetting that in some way to justify that. So that's where I have heartburn with the setback. That is all. And then I would require landscaping the structure to
Additional
look the
structural.
exact same, percentage-wise on stone. And I know we don't normally have that accessory, but that's where I would think it would make sense and be prudent to tie it to that because you are going so much higher than we normally would allow.
Yeah, and the height is tied to the 12-foot setback, right? It would be allowed, this wouldn't even be coming before us if it was a 12-foot setback, correct? Because the height and everything else is in, the only thing the reason for this is the 6 foot. So
That's
so
just where
technically, they could take it back and
they could make it just.
they
like
can
it
make
is.
it just like,
It's just because they're trying
meet
to
the
drop
code.
the 6 foot.
Yeah,
Yep.
they're trying to drop this. So if they are to allow the 6 foot, I get where you're coming from, Adam, where they would, there has to be some offset for allowing that.
I don't remember seeing on the sections on the back of that structure, if there's a
Well, I
big
think
window left
architecturally, they
there,
dressed up the
or
back of
windows.
it.
Yeah,
You're
can we
so
look at the
close to that
elevation views
lot.
again?
Because there's windows and
Yeah, maybe
other
that's the
elements
case.
on the
Instead of
backside.
landscaping, you pretty up the building.
Well,
Yeah.
no, you're so close to the lot to the south. I'm saying that window's looking right down.
So you do have all those in the back.
Yeah, that's gonna be a problem, with any backyard with all the windows and the light just bouncing right off of them, hitting the.
For the
south-
neighbors in the
yeah,
south side. I guess, would we build a house? I guess, yeah, would we let another house be that close to the lot line?
6 feet from the lot line?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Not in this area.
Not in that subdivision, but in some subdivisions we do, so.
Yeah, depending on the zoning, right? Yeah.
Well, and the other thing, we may be doing him a favor if he wants to have this as an accessory dwelling unit, and then we have the same requirement, setbacks for ADUs in the future, and now he's in the wrong area. But anyhow, that's still to come up. Michael,
Yeah.
go ahead and.
Just for your consideration, the way the ordinance is currently phrased, essentially, if the application meets the standards, then the planning commission is obligated to approve it, right? The language says, the planning commission shall approve if you find that it meets the standards. Now, the staff report has drafted findings that are recommended to the commission that says that we believe it does meet those standards. That's not to say that the commission has to agree with that recommendation. Right. If you choose to make a motion to deny the application, just be specific about what standard is not being met. What finding does the commission determine that would warrant a denial of the request?
So you're saying the 6 foot setback is
So-
meeting standards?
So in the ordinance, there's a standard that talks about granting the special exception for additional height and size greater than the maximum allowed if it can be mitigated by certain things like architecture and so you would basically say that the additional height cannot be mitigated based on the standards that are required in the code.
And
So
I
you
would
just need
argue-
to be specific about that. If you were
Yeah,
to
so
basically disagree
Let me
with
just
the
ask a quick
recommendation.
question then. If he was to go 6 foot, if he lowered his structure by 6 feet, he could have the offset.
Yeah.
of 6 feet as well, right? Because then that meets
But
the,
then he can't have a second story.
but he couldn't do the second story. No, I get it.
Right.
I get it. I want to make sure we're all clear on that.
And then again, on the shape, and I realize that I think we all did have in mind more like a cul-de-sac, but it does meet the definition
Yeah,
of
I
that
get it.
irregular shape, so.
I just mean that
Yeah.
offset, that drastic of an offset
All the ones we're seeing.
was more for weirder
So
lots.
you
when
would,
we
you would
talked about-
say, like, we don't believe that the impact could be mitigated through, you know, architecture, through screening.
So I actually am comfortable with, I lean on giving the applicant more time to actually try and meet the architectural and the landscaping. I don't feel that we're seeing that right now. Because I don't even know what the house looks like to compare it. Like, does that architecture even meet that, like, does it look similar? I mean, we're only looking at just this giant.
Stucco box.
So to me, I lean on more waiting for the applicant to try and address some landscaping and some showing the betterment of the setback reduction or the landscaping, rather than a flat out no. To see where we can come to what makes sense. But the back of this building, to me, is going to be a detrimental effect, 6 feet off of a 2-story that has windows looking straight into this
Other neighbor's backyard.
potential ADU. I'm not saying that it is. And so that's something that you wouldn't normally expect 6 feet off of the property line.
Would you guys rather not, well, would you rather not see windows back there, or?
I don't know. Like I said, I would say more architectural flavor to tie into what makes sense in that area.
Now, the front elevation of the existing home was included in the staff report, if you,
I think it's
the sides
less,
and rear are.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
just
most of
didn't
it's-
remember
It's
seeing
just
that.
like a gray stucco in the picture that we saw.
I think it's less whether it has windows or not has windows. I think it's the height adjacent to the fence or the property line. We're assuming that there's a 6-foot fence there. I mean, because by the time you get the roof overhang, you're at 4.5 feet from the fence.
Because I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but you'll see all those, I'll call them the garage windows.
Yeah,
The lower
completely
windows
over the
are.
transom windows
higher
will all
than
be above
six-
the,
They're higher than the 6-foot fence.
oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I just think we need to have more architectural elements and landscaping to move forward in a positive direction. And I don't feel like I have enough to make that determination right now. That's just me.
That's a good point.
Well, for me,
Because I would hate to just say no based off of that when maybe they have plans or maybe it's
Right, right.
closer. Like that's the
Well,
part
yeah,
I
if
don't know.
they had a landscape plan that showed the type of trees that are gonna go in that area.
And how you're going to buffer
4.5
that
feet.
transition, right?
Yeah, 4.5 feet between your fence and your eave, that doesn't leave a whole lot of room for trees to grow up.
Exactly.
I mean, that's a hallway.
Correct.
So if they could demonstrate that they can,
Achieve that, then
And
maybe
achieve
the
that,
6
then,
foot makes
yeah.
sense. So I lean on more of a
Continue.
continuation myself than a flat out denial. I agree with what Michael said that I don't think we're ready. I don't think it makes kind of sense. I just think we need to evaluate the architecture and the betterments to adjust the offset or setback.
I would agree. It feels like an encumbrance on the other property where even though there's not a house, just having a 2-story, which looks like it's
in your backyard.
in your backyard, looking down on your property, I think it's a detriment to the other property and house that's not there yet.
Right.
Like someone might not buy that lot because that's so close.
But I mean, they were noticed, but it always depends on the subdivision, right? Larger subdivisions, they don't typically, it's not like it's a flexible solution. It's, yes, that's what's going there, deal with it.
On that,
Well, and
On
the
that
developer may or may not disclose what he knows. either.
Correct, and that's
Correct?
different, and that's what
Yeah.
I would hate to have happen.
on that point, Brody, I mean, if the owner is still the builder and it hasn't been, it's not under contract, this building gets built, the person coming in will obviously know it's there.
Well, unless
Assuming
it's
it's-
permitted,
Depending
then he
depending
doesn't
if
build
they
it in
build
a
it
year.
or how fast they
Assuming it
build
gets
it.
built very quickly and doesn't
Yeah.
get sold very quickly.
Yeah.
And it's been noticed, so.
I think that's reasonable.
With all those windows, I don't know if it makes a difference whether it's this close or that close to another 6 feet
Well,
back.
I think another 6 feet would make a difference with the windows personally.
It'd
The-
give
the
you
upper
more,
ones,
it'd
yeah.
give you 12 feet of landscaping to hide
Right.
There you go. That's a good answer.
Exactly. Well, and
6 feet's not.
depending on what happens tonight with it, you know, sounds like we're leaning towards a continuance, but the applicant may just take this back and not even come back before us. They may just go with the 12-foot setback and move forward.
Keep
But
in mind,
anyhow.
if they did expand it to 12 feet, there's no way for any sort of mitigation to require landscaping.
Correct.
So they could just say, fine, I'll put it 12 feet, but I'm not putting any trees. Whereas if we were to approve this, you could require
There is that.
Well,
landscaping.
Well, I think it's, yeah, that's the balance.
Yeah, I'm not worried about that. If we don't approve it, if they've met their code,
Yeah,
sorry.
then they could
you're
do
right.
it if they
They
want to
met our
change it to
code,
12
sorry.
feet.
Yeah. I mean, no, I know he's protecting the view, but that landowner also, you could look at it the other way where, you know, speaking of a person that put way too tall of trees by his garden, you know, maybe now you can't do what you wanted to do in that area, right? So I'm more just leaning on a continuation. So I'm ready to make a motion unless somebody.
Go for it.
I move to continue item 2.1 for the applicant to address additional landscaping that matches the architecture of the home and provide information showing that both on the front, back side, and both sides, as well as the landscaping.
I'll second that.
Without date, right?
Without date, sorry.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion by Adam and a second by Brody. We'll call for a vote. Brody?
Yes.
Forrest?
Yes.
Heather?
Yes.
Adam?
Yes.
Daryl?
Yeah.
Andrea?
Yes.
All right, this item will continue. All right, with that, any comments from the commission tonight? Nope. All right. Future meeting, city council meeting next week, and in 2 weeks, we'll have our next planning commission, and 2 weeks after that, next city council. Oh, wait a minute, there's no city council on the end of July. I guess that must be a 24th holiday or something. So anyhow, August 2nd would be the next planning commission as well. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved.
Adam and Brody for a second. All in favor? Aye. All right. Go ahead and adjourn. We're going to take a quick recess, grab a dinner, and then head on out to our field trip, our work meeting. Thank you.
No.